podcast about knitting. I hope you'll enjoy. I know it's been 2 weeks since my last episode. This summer heat is not making any good for my knitting inspiration. I also spent most of my creative energy on building a new website with the tool Ruby on Rails, which was my first website with this tool. So yeah, I mean, for me, building a website can be just as creative as knitting something, and something I really enjoyed. It doesn't mean I given up on knitting, it just meant that I spent a lot of time and energy on it. The website, the purpose with it is that we can put stuff there that we want to sell when we're moving. You can buy stuff through the site, but you can watch things, and we can easily post and remove things from the website. Because we could use something like Craigslist, but we will have so many things, almost everything. We own not personal stuff and some of the things we bought, but most of our furniture and other things are from IKEA, and we bought it when we moved here with the intention to sell it again when we move away from here, because it makes no sense to transport that much furniture over the Atlantic Ocean. You can probably get kind of the same stuff back home anyway. So I don't have tons to show you, but I thought it would be fun to check in, say hi, I'm alive, and talk to you some. I think it's also when it's 30 degrees hot, I don't really want to think about mittens and hats and warm cardigans. I just don't feel like it. Also last week I asked you how you do with tags that from your yarn balls, how do you store them so that they won't get lost? And some of you suggested that you make a center pulled ball, like a wind ball, and you put it in the middle, which is a great idea. Yeah, I mean, as long as you put it in afterwards so that you can actually take it out and look at it and see what kind of yarn it is. And someone said that they didn't have a ball winder, but they usually took a wooden spoon or something, and they wound it around the handle of the wooden spoon, so that you will get this hole in the middle. I kind of like my balls, the hand wound balls, because they are quite firm, quite long. Because when I have a center pulled ball, it usually gets kind of wibbly wobbly at the end. It's so squishy. I like it how they are. But maybe that's a better idea, so I can keep track of my tags. But that would also mean that I actually have to wind balls. I'm going to show this yarn later, just give it as an example. This yarn, I will probably not ball it because it's already in some kind of ball. I don't know if I can squeeze in a tag in here. Maybe you can just roll it up and at least get some information from it. Thank you for your input. I'm also glad that to see that so many more have joined the podcasting group, both at Ravelry and Introduce Yourself in the Introduce Yourself thread at Ravelry, and also that so many of you have subscribed. I'm glad to see that you like watching me, keeps me going. Yeah, I mean, the reason I skipped last week is not because I don't like talking to you, it's mostly because I didn't feel I have anything to show, and maybe that's how it's going to be over the summer. Okay, so let's move on to some solid knitting. I don't have a finished object, as I said, but I have one work in progress that I actually worked on. My first and only work in progress is my second dew shawl. It's green, so more like grass than dew. But, oh, smart, I'm in the middle of a row, so I can't really even show you. I was knitting on it in the car, so I guess I just had to start navigating, and then it's not that interesting. It will be nice when I finish it, but it has some eyelet rose arrays out like this, and then I made the stockinette wadding, and I would just start the edging, which also has a eyelet pattern where the eyelets are getting more and more closely together, so there's quite sparse in the beginning, and then as I knit on, they will get closer and closer. And then there would be nicely picot bind off. So the shawl is called Dew, and it's by Maria Montzka. She also hosts the Stitched in Sweden podcast. I here added a lifeline this is my first lifeline, so yay for me. I like trying out new things, you know that. This lifeline is to floss, is the word. Floss thread, because it doesn't stick to anything, but it's quite smooth. It's a smooth floss, and I put it in there because that's where I have to rip back to if I want to make the small one. Because I want to make the big one, but I'm not sure if my yarn, if it will be enough. So I'm not sure if I if I need it. Unfortunately, at least that will be easier to rip back. I think the yarn will be enough for the big one. I still have quite a lot left, but you never know. And in that case, I will be sad and I don't want to. I really, so the reason I make this shawl is because I have one in grey and I really enjoy it, so I want one with more colour. The colour is nice. This yarn is from Verdant Griffin and I bought it at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. You've seen it before. I like how it's slightly variegated. If you can see, I think it shows up quite well. It's a little bit warmer colour than it shows up on the screen. Because sitting by the window, the light is quite blue, cold. But yeah, maybe more like this. I look at full, but you can at least see the colour properly. I keep it in this lovely little drawstring project bag. It's quite simple, just a bag, but I got it when I bought the kit for my first shoe shawl. At that time I also got these stitch markers. You can see it's a little ring with a bead on it, clear bead. I really like it. These are kind of my favorite simple stitch markers. Yeah, this was a collaboration between Maria Montzka, the pattern designer, and the Wool Barn, who made the yarn for the first shawl. As I said, that I have a few other projects going on, but I haven't done anything on them, so I'm not going to show you. Maybe I will, maybe next time, let's see. I don't want to let you down. So let's move on to new stuff. Because when you don't have enough time to craft, you can always buy new crafting stuff. Okay, really, this is new, but it's not bought. I got it from a friend. So it's some sock yarn from, I think it's just from Joann's. My friend bought it when they had a clearance. I don't think it's available anymore, but it's called Souls and More. It's a self-striping, self-patterning sock yarn. And my friend have a too big yarn stash to handle herself, so sometimes I feel like it, I go there and ask her if I can have some, and I promise to make her a pair of socks. I haven't yet decided which pattern to use. The Knitting Broomstick had a giveaway with the book Coffee with Cece, with the Cece Almond's lovely sock pattern. I got it, so I was gifted an e-copy of Cece's sock pattern book. So I have now I think it's 6 lovely sock patterns to try out. And since my knitting speed the last few weeks has been slow, as you notice, I haven't tried them out yet. So maybe I'll try out one of them with this yarn. I'm not sure if they will benefit from this fluff yarn, or maybe something with cables would be good, because it's still a fairly patterned yarn, but I don't like vanilla socks. I also want to do this whole 2 at a time thing again. It was fun. And not too small this time. Yeah, I'm really excited about trying out Cece's patterns. Several of them I've been looking at previously, and I just haven't tried them. Now it's time. I just have to get I have a lot of sock patterns hanging around. I just need to get my sock yarn out of up on the needles. Yeah, socks, sometimes I feel like socks, I really like knitting socks in one way, but on the other hand, sometimes you put in a lot of effort, something you can't even see because you're wearing it on your feet and no one will see it. On the other hand, it's something that you will actually use. Not now, but in the winter. Especially since I'm moving back to Sweden soon, it will be cold. I mean, okay, it will be colder a bigger part of the year, I think. And we won't have all carpeting, so maybe I want to have socks indoor. It would be nice. The winters in Sweden are not that much more colder than here, but they are slightly longer. That's what I have for, new stuff. last week, every week I will, or every episode, I will have a question for you guys. Like last week I asked you about how you do with the storage of your knitting, of your yarn labels. This week, I've been thinking about projects that you get angry at. And one of the Swedish podcasts that I'm listening to, this Nordic podcast is called Recoding. They talked about the angry cupboard, and they have done something that we're coming back to. Angry cupboard is where you put the cupboard where you put your projects that you get angry at. It doesn't have to be a cupboard, but it's a place. But I think one of the girls in that podcast has an angry cupboard, and she refers to that's a conceptual space rather than an actual cupboard. And I have that kind of projects that I got tired of, or projects that I didn't know what to do next step with, and they just got langing, and projects that I need to rip up. But I'm just, I wasn't happy and excited about continuing knitting on them, so I don't. And for me, because I don't have that great storage for my knitting, I mean, it's okay, but it's not, it's like one small bookshelf where I keep my stuff, so I just keep my other projects there, and they kind of occupy nice project bags that I want to use, so that's a problem. But when I move to Sweden, I will get a crafting room, hopefully. I think I kind of convinced my husband to let up our den or extra bedroom for my knitting, or crafting in general, sewing, whatever, and if I also have it as a guest room. So then I will have more space, and I just wonder, do you have an angry cupboard, do you have a place, or do you just let your angry projects lay around? Or maybe you never get angry at your project, so you are very organized and just rip it out perfectly. And I also like, if I'm not sure how to continue, I kind of, if I'm not sure how to continue, I sometimes put the project aside and then I come back to it while I have had some other knitting to done my process and thinking and how to proceed. Or if something goes wrong and I know I have to rip it out and I really want a project, I sometimes have to let it rest some time before I start over again. Like with my Siri cardigan, the grey cardigan with the leaf pattern I showed you a couple of weeks ago, I first knitted this far, and then so I made the whole yoke patterning, and then I realized this is too big. I had made a swatch, but apparently when I did the patterning, that stitch is kind of different, so it was much looser than when I did my stockinette swatch. So I had to go down, rip it all out, go down one needle size, and start over again. And now it's a lovely cardigan, and it fits perfectly. But that was annoying and frustrating. So. But then I realized it's too big. I put it aside for some time, maybe a couple of months. Then I felt happy to start working on it again. That's also why I started in like October and didn't finish it until, was it April? Something like that. I actually bought some buttons for my Siri cardigan. It's a quite simple button. It's black. Looks like this. Yeah, so it's a very simple black button. I think it will look nice whenever I get around to put it on. As I said, this whole warm weather, it's not really making me want to take out a thick cardigan and even start crafting on it. I can't even use it as soon as I put it on. But I can always take it later in the fall when I feel like it. Crafting is for fun, so I mean, if you don't feel like it, don't do it. Also, several of you have commented on how I am quite daring in my knitting. I mean, like I don't have any limits, and yeah, no, I don't. In general, I like to challenge myself and try new things, and I'm not that. And I just say, don't be afraid. What's the worst thing that can happen? That you have to rip it out again? Is it worth it? I emailed with one of you lovely viewers and said you were a little bit afraid of color work. And I should really reply to that email, but instead I thought I can maybe take it up here because it's maybe something more of you have been thinking about. So, do you really want to do color work? If the answer is yes, but you still feel like you don't dare to, I'm like, so the risk is that you have put in a lot of time, and even if you might learn something, you still have to rip it out because it looks like shit. That is a fair idea, yeah. there is a big risk that it will not look good at all and you have to rip it out or throw it away. So my suggestion is then, if you feel sad for your precious yarn, choose a cheaper yarn for that's like, okay, so now this is multicolored, but something like this. On clearance it was $3 a ball on clearance. Maybe that's something you could take a cheap yarn, or a cheaper yarn if you, instead of starting off with your most precious yarn. If you feel like you're afraid to do the investment of time and it might not actually become a product, you can see it as you get a lot of knitting time for your yarn money. You can also say, is it worth the risk for learning something? I mean, see, this is not knitting for you, but it's knitting for learning. And next time you will be better because you've learned something. Also something I do if I feel like not sure how to start, or I Google like colorwork for dummies, or how to do colorwork, or colorwork knitting tutorials. It's all out there, and then you can realize it says kind of the same thing in all the tutorials, and it's usually, I mean, how hard can it be? When you learn how to knit, you probably didn't just pick up the needles and the yarn and then knitted the most beautiful cardigan in the world. Maybe you had to struggle. Maybe I think we all have some horrendous things that was our beginner knitting stuff in the water, but that was how we learned. And the same is when you try a new technique. Maybe that's why it's easier for me to start, even if I haven't knitted for that long. Maybe that's why it's easy for me to learn about a new technique, because I remember how it was to learn how to knit. And for me, it's like, if I learn how to knit, why shouldn't I be able to learn how to do colorwork? I've done some horrible colorwork, and as a couple of episodes ago, I showed you how my Gudrun feminist mittens, and that they were quite nice on the, here around the wrist, but then the actual hand, not only was it too big, but it was also not that good, because I was too tight in my floatings. And I've done colorwork before that was okay, and obviously now I'm back again because I'm too stressed. That's also something, take a lot of time. Take time to learn your new craft. Maybe your knitting will be much slower when you learn the new thing, but that's like how it is when you learn something new. Maybe the extra time will take, maybe it's worth the investment to learn. Also with colorwork specifically, even if it's a little bit bumpy when you knit it, a lot will look better when you block it. So and that is something that I always wet block rather than steam block. I know I'm a huge fan of steam blocking because patience, no. I don't really like this whole waiting thing, no. So you just have to, if you make a mitten or whatever, you just soak it completely and gently squeeze the water out and let it rest flat on a towel or something, on a drying rack. And then it will smooth out a lot. So those are my tips for how to dive into a new technique and to colorwork specifically. And don't be afraid, it's only knitting. There are much scarier things out there, and you learn how to knit, I'm sure you can learn all the other fabulous techniques that you are interested in. Only go for the ones you like or interested in and want to know. Don't waste time with the ones you don't want to do. No. Okay, so that was everything I had to share with you today. Take care, happy summer, and happy knitting, of course. It was lovely to have you all here today. Thank you for joining me. Bye!